Hello everyone, my name is Igor Pikayzen and I'm a violinist, and I'm really excited about my upcoming concerts with the Academy of Taiwan Strings in Kaohsiung and Taipei at the end of October and the beginning of November. So ahead of our concert, I decided to answer a few questions about myself so you get to know me a little bit better. And right now I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado, where I'm a professor of violin at the University of Denver. I almost always go out of my way to do some sort of physical activity every day, either run or do push-ups or go to the gym. Just puts me in a better mood. I almost always, at least when I'm home, try to listen to an LP from my grandparents' collection. Usually not classical, but I try to always put on a recording when I'm having breakfast if I have time, or lunch, or sitting down with the family. And I have many people who I adore. Of course, first and foremost is my grandfather, Viktor Pikayzen. I grew up being fortunate enough to not only know his recordings, but to grow up in the same house and listen to him practice and listen to his concerts. So that stayed with me my whole life. And next to him, I would have to say David Oistrakh. For all violinists, he's revered, but for me, he really signifies what it means to be a phenomenal violinist like no other, a true artist. From the modern violinists, there's many fantastic players. If I would have to choose one, I would say Janine Jansen, who's obviously a phenomenal player, but for how true and passionate she is, while always keeping it, for me, within the confines of good taste, which is, of course, very subjective. I think the first answer is obvious. It's this violin, which is a Lorenzo Storioni from Cremona, one of the last great Cremonese makers, and I was incredibly privileged to receive this from my grandfather. This is the violin that he played on since 1970, so almost for the last 50 years of his life, and some of his most famous recordings, not all of them, were made on this violin, so it's a family heirloom. And interestingly enough, my grandfather, like Oistrakh, preferred German bows. He had a very nice collection, but his bows of choice were usually Nuremberger or Frechner. And this bow that I hold in my hand is a Frechner that was passed on to my grandfather by his mother, my great-great-grandmother, who was a wonderful pianist and pedagogue. Well, like I mentioned, I was very lucky. I could hear my grandfather not only perform, but practice, and that, I think, taught me a lot. And I could hear my mother practice, so I grew up with a lot of Chopin and Liszt and Beethoven and Tchaikovsky. So I think a lot of style is really just listening. It's listening a lot, and I grew up on quite a bit of violin music, of course, because we always would have recordings of Schering, Milstein, Francescatti, Kogan, Hirschhorn, the great violinist of the past. And I think as I got older, I started listening more in my own time. Symphonies, quartets. For example, right now I'm absolutely obsessed with Wagner's Siegfried. I have a tendency to fall in love with something and just listen to it on repeat. But I think style is, of course, your own personality, but first and foremost, it's just a lot of listening, taking in things and making some of them your own, learning from them. Of course, I have so many, and now that he's not here, I always think back to it. If I would have to choose one, it's not even an experience, but it's something that is for me one of my best memories. We would be playing chess in our kitchen, either in Moscow or in Ankara, where we lived for a long time. Of course, he loved chess. He was a very serious amateur chess player. And I had no chance against him, but we would play, and he would always have his violin with him. And while I was thinking about a move, he was just always playing passages on the violin, always with a mute, very quietly. And it didn't matter if he had a concert or not, it was a natural state of being. He was always in a good mood and always just playing something from Beethoven or Tchaikovsky or Glazunov or Khachaturian or Paganini. It was just his natural, normal state. And now that I think about it, it's some of my most fond memories with him. The most recent one, I was at a wedding in Germany, and somebody there in a town I've never been to before actually happened to be a recording engineer who recorded my grandfather in the same town 40 something years ago. So we instantaneously found a lot to talk about. But these things happened more often than you might think. My grandfather loved his collaboration with the Academy of Taiwan Strings, and it was always one of his favorite places to go. And he's been and performed in almost every country in the world. And I was very fortunate to see that firsthand. 1998, right before my mother and I moved to the States, we were actually in Taiwan with the Academy of Taiwan Strings for almost a month. And I was 9 years old at the time. And I will never forget sitting in on both rehearsals. And of course the concerts, how dedicated and committed the musicians were, and also what incredibly warm and hospitable people they were. Of course to my grandfather, but by extension also to me, how sincere and genuine they were. And that's why we were so lucky to have so many real friends from Taiwan. And those people know who they are. And since then he always loved coming back to Taipei, coming back to Taiwan. Some of his most fond memories are from there. So of course I anticipate our concerts with great excitement. I cannot wait to share the music with my colleagues in the orchestra. I think it's going to be a very interesting program of Ysaÿe and Piazzolla with Taiwan Strings in Taipei. It's also a piece that requires a lot of interplay between the violinist and the orchestra. You could say it's almost for orchestra with solo violin. So I am really looking forward to sharing some of my favorite music with some wonderful people in two incredible halls. And I'm also really looking forward to the masterclasses that will happen in between. So if you're in Taiwan, I am really hoping to see you for my recital in Weiwuying Concert Hall in Kaohsiung on October 31st. Or for our concert with the Academy of Taiwan Strings on November 8th at the National Concert Hall for a program of Astor Piazzolla and Eugène Ysaÿe. So I really hope to see you there. I cannot wait, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all very soon. Ciao!